Hey y'all, it's Fel. As some of you know, I recently joined the Alliance GOM-P, GOM-P, however it's pronounced, during the extended off-season between seasons 30 and 31. And I've been absolutely loving it there so far. I've made some great friends, and I brought some great friends over. So far, we've been doing pretty well in Alliance War. I think we've won all three of our our season wars so far. So I decided I would make a compilation video of those three wars. Less because we won all of them, more because one, I lacked the time to be able to do individual war videos, and two, because I just really wanted to share some of what I thought were my more interesting assignments, my favorite assignments, and least favorite, if I'm being honest, as well as what I thought were some fights that I could learn from by commentating over, and hopefully you guys could learn from by watching. So, without further ado, I'm going to explain and then start the video on what was my first and hopefully only death of the season. I was using Mr. Negative against a Symbiote Supreme mini-boss on that one node I cannot remember the number of that has Aspect of Evolution. Now, my plan going into that fight, and I had dueled a lot before this, was to build Mr. Negative up to 10 light energy through parrying before the first charge of high ground could come up. Then I could hopefully convert those 10 light energy to dark energy, since I could still evade before he got his first charge of high ground, work to an L2, drop it, and the fight would pretty much be over, since Mr. Negative would be absolutely nuking Symbiote Supreme's power gain. Now, the issue that you will see I faced might become pretty apparent, but without further ado, let's begin the shit show. So going into this, you will see that I follow my plan of just parrying, right? And that worked perfectly in duels. But a few parries through, I noticed something like, wait a minute, this guy doesn't have Limber. And that is what I think led to that death. Him not having Limber, them not having Limber, and my poor improvisation. Now, you'll see I had to cancel my heavy charge earlier because I was like, I'm not going to be able to evade that. He's just going to combo me in the face. I launched an L1 there. I know the spacing seemed risky, but I've launched that L1 with negative quite a lot into blocks, and I know the spacing where you could just barely make it out of the opponent's dash. Here, I'm trying to get as much power as possible, so that hopefully when he uses his L3, he will knock me down, convert my light energy, and I'll be at an L2. So I can hopefully use the L2 and at least reverse some of his power gain. Or, well, just cancel out some of his power gain, do some damage. Now, as you'll see, that worked okay, and maybe somehow, someway I would have managed to clutch this fight if I had had an indestructible boost and could have used that strategy multiple times. But I was really relying on that parry up to 10 light charges strategy. Here, I don't know what happened. I'm pretty sure I dash back, but I could just be dumb. It could have just been all the stress. But as you'll see, that fight really didn't end too well. Now, the main things that I think I learned from that fight were, one, never to assume your opponent has certain masteries, no matter how likely it may be. That's what screwed me over. And the second thing I learned was always have a plan B. The reason I lost that fight was because I didn't have a well planned out plan B. And so I had to improvise, and ultimately that improvisation is what led to my death. Now what hurts the most is that death was with Mr. Negative, a champion I love playing so much, I love using so much, and I know this may not necessarily be the case in practice, where dying once doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to die multiple times in the season, but dying my first war with him doesn't set a good tone. Now, earlier in that same war, I had actually gone against a Doctor Doom with some of the laggiest gameplay you have ever seen, to the point where I can't even show the footage because it's abhorrent. I showed it to my officers, and frankly, they were surprised I somehow made it out alive. And the only way I managed to do that was I ended my video recording, I paused my screen for a few minutes actually, and took every precaution possible. I even blocked Dr. Doom's full L2 when normally I'd be able to fully dex that, no problem. I was simply not confident I'd be able to fully dex it with how much lag there was. And this was when I was at about 60%. I survived on 14%, but I came to the conclusion that, in the moment, I would likely have a better chance of surviving by just face blocking that L2 than I would by trying to dex it. So I guess there's some, how do I say, it's a bit poetic, I guess, that I somehow escaped death in that Doctor Doom fight, and it caught up with me in that Symbiote Supreme fight. But I learned a few lessons very quickly from that fight, and I will say one good thing is it alleviated a lot of pressure for me to get a deathless season, which, frankly, I wouldn't be able to. Now, going into this next war, I was assigned one of my other favorite champions, Shang Chi. And there are a few, this is just a fairly menial fight. Nothing too special, it's just a Red Goblin. But nonetheless, I thought it was a really good warm-up and I just wanted to show it. I don't know why, I just did. Maybe I wanted to fill time. But later in this war, you will see a fight I love, but for now, let's focus on this. Now, it's steady build-up, running on fumes, and the heal block debuff, and while they're down, I don't know, I'm literally reading these off the screen, as you can probably see. But my plan here is fairly simple. Focus on getting my ins by stunning into Red Goblin's block, making sure I use my Purify Wushu Strike very frequently, just in case, because I know none of those debuffs are really that detrimental in this fight, but, well, why not Purify them? One, for that Fury. Two, because I don't want any unintended interactions or any interactions I didn't foresee to arise and cause me any problems. So I'm playing this fight pretty simply. I'm trying to bait out the L1 as much as possible. I'm very comfortable dexing Red Goblin's L2, but I just don't want to risk it. I don't want to let anything get out of control after that first war. And you'll see it goes pretty well. Just building up some chi charges, very casually playing this fight, and then I will drop the L2 any second now. As you see, first it killed him. I still stand by my thought process that Shang Chi, how did I get that wrong? That Shang Chi is an awesome nuke, and hopefully these fights throughout this video will convince you of that too. Now, this next fight was one I was really stressed. Oh wait, no, sorry. That's the one after this. This is a torch fight with MCoC. I was a little bit stressed for this, but ultimately I had a pretty good idea of how to play it, which was mainly focus on my, well, start with an L2. I think I had a power back boost active for this, but I could be wrong. Then go to my L1 to end the fight. Now, MCoC becomes immune to incinerates, so it shouldn't be terrible. I shouldn't be taking too much damage from that. And I am pretty damn comfortable dexing dexing Torch's L1 when I'm at close range, and you will see that come into play later in this fight. But for the beginning at least, everything's going well. I had that disorient on me. I'm waiting for, there it is, I'm waiting for myself to become immune to it, which I just did. Launching my L2, getting a bit of damage, getting my debuffs up. Hopefully getting an incinerate on myself so I can start becoming immune to that. Then you'll see, first dex, perfect. This is how I dex Torch's L1 like 99% of the time. But there is always that 1%. Now, high ground charges are stacking up quite a bit now. We have 3, but I'm not too worried because MCoC has a really chunky health pool. You will see what I'm doing, however, and what I'm going to do, is I really don't want Torch to use that L2, because I am not at all comfortable dexing Torch's L2. I would much prefer the L1. Now, you see here, I was at long range dexing that L1, and that's why I got clipped by that final hit. So, just basically a lesson to myself. I took that in the fight. I'm like, okay, make sure we're baiting his L1s at close range. And you'll see this next one should just go perfectly. Textbook. Right as normal. Not really worried about, I think it's his block penetration going up. I'm not 100% sure with this node. But I wasn't too worried about it because, again, MCoC is a very chunky health pool, and the fight's over. Just like that. Really quick, fairly easy, but did have some potential to go wrong, I guess. Nonetheless, it was pretty nice to do a fairly interesting, not exactly simple fight, just to boost my morale a bit before this next one, which I was really stressing out for. but I absolutely loved how it turned out. You're seeing it right now. It's that Iron Man Infinity War. Now, I had a cut there. It's because this is a different clip. I took the fight a lot later because I practiced a bit, all of that. But you'll see I'm on the boost menu right now, and I am really taking no risks with this fight. What do we got here? We got a 12% special attack boost, a 200% power back boost, 20% champion, 15% health, and a 33% power start. Now, my plan with this Iron Man Infinity War was to follow a unblockable Wushu, purify Wushu, stun Wushu, heavy cycle. So what that basically means is my plan was to get my ins by waiting until Iron Man Infinity War dashed back and held his block for a bit. I would dash in, use my unblockable Wushu to gain my unblockable buff. I would then back out, go back in, and use my Purify Wushu to, one, get rid of any debuffs I had on myself, and two, to gain a few cleanse charges, just in case, let's say I got clipped by one of Iron Man Infinity War's L1s, just to make sure I could purify, I think it is, that shock debuff and not take too much damage, though that wasn't my major worry. I was mainly worried about the disorient debuffs that would stack up in this fight from my dashing back. And so my plan was to use that Purify Wushu to keep that under control. Following that, I would dash out and dash back in, either stun into his block or stun combo him if I still had my unblockable buff, so that I could get a stun debuff opening to launch my heavy attack and reset all my Wushus. Now, if you have a keen eye while we're looking at these nodes, you'll think, well, you didn't really need to use the Purify Wushu if you aren't going to be doing any blocking, you aren't going to be trying to parry. And you're right. But in the moment, I didn't fully realize that. I think I got disorient confused with concussion. And so because of that, I was taking no risks whatsoever. And I wanted to purify that disorient whenever possible. Now, a bit through the fight, I did actually realize that, oh wait, this is a disorient, I don't have to worry about this at all. But I decided to just keep following my strategy because it had been going really well. And so here's that strategy I was talking about in practice. I activate my unblockable, followed by my purify, then once he dashes back again, I go into my stun. Fairly straightforward, but I also think this fight does have the potential to go wrong if you take too many blocked hits, which I think I took a 1 this entire fight. Now, you'll see high ground charges are actually stacking up quite a bit, and I'm trying to regulate that where possible by throwing, let's say, a light before my heavy, as you saw me do earlier. But I won't really have to worry about them too much because, as I also said earlier, I'm not trying to block. You'll also see the strike counter of block penetration going up. Now, that's going to get to a pretty big number, but I was assured by my officers, one in particular, Titan, before this fight that it really wasn't that bad. Like, you would still take damage, but it wouldn't be a terrible amount that would instantly kill you or anything. So I wasn't too worried. Here I activate my L3 after resetting my Wushus. 1 for some chi charges, 2 to make some space, and 3 just to dump power so I can start working up to my L2 and end the fight. So from here, it's pretty simple. I'm just going to keep following my rotation, dashing back a bit. You can see those charges are really starting to stack up now. I could have gotten caught there, by the way, where I dash in, he dashed back, but I was very careful to react quickly, just in case. So I think I would have been fine even if he had tried to retaliate, but nonetheless, that could have been a mistake. But anyways, there's the blocked hit, and you'll see, wait, what? He has 25, breakthrough charges and 5 altitude charges, and that only did 10%. And that was my biggest takeaway from this fight. I was like, wait a minute, I really don't have to worry about the strike-through counters on this path. 10% health from a single blocked hit when you've let like 25, 30 of them stack up is nothing. So the rest of this fight, I was fairly stress-free, and you'll see in a second, I'm going to drop my L2, and oh my god, was it overkill. The first hit does 31,000 damage and instantly kills Iron Man Infinity War from about 21% health. Now, the reason I saved my L2 for so long is because I wanted to make sure I had it, and I had it unblockable for when he was about to enter his big armor phase, because I did not want to deal with that. Now, that did work. I managed to solo the fight. I finished on pretty much a full health bar, and so after doing that fight, I was pretty proud of myself. And that fight was actually what led my officers to start assigning me Shang Chi a lot more. Or, well, I guess we only had one war since then, but from what I can tell, they're going to be assigning me Shang Chi a lot more, and I'm very thankful for that. Now that was my last war, last fight for this war. So now we're going to the next war, where I'm running Path 4 in... Wait, no, I'm running Path 4 in Sections 1 and 2. A lot of very interesting fights in this war. We're starting with Immortal Abomination on Path 4, Section 1. This can go wrong if you're not on top of it, but it's not a terrible fight, especially because you have class advantage, you're going to be doing some extra attack. Now, a friend of mine, Jwil, Jason Jabari Gaming, I will link his channel in the description, took a fight similar to this, I think, a war or two ago, and he was commenting that you should try to avoid hitting Immortal Abomination's block, and I don't know if he really explained why, so I'm just going to take a second to explain why I don't like to do my combos into block that I normally would with Shang-Chi against Ibon. And that's because whenever you hit his block, you're going to be gaining a weakness debuff, right? And so that's going to be wasting your Purify charges from the Purify Wushu. You can only purify, I think it is 3 debuffs on activation, and then you gain a number of cleanse charges equal to your number of ready to Wushu strikes. So I was being very careful of that, but you see it didn't really matter. That fight ended very quickly. Only thing I was being careful of was not to push him to the L2, because, of course, I don't know if maybe any of you guys can dex that, but I can't. This next fight was against Void, also fairly straightforward, nothing too special, but you always just gotta be a bit careful. You never know. Don't underestimate fights. That's something I did later in this war that you will see nearly cost me, but I thankfully managed to bring it back. Now, this Void fight is nothing serious. I'm just full healing because I want to... Oh wait, did I full heal? I don't know if I did. Okay, I did. I full heal just because I want to take every precaution necessary. Void can get out of control if you screw up a few dexes, I guess, on the specials, and you see there, this node does actually place quite a few non-damaging debuffs on you. And so if you're not good about purifying those debuffs, keeping them under control, the damage can very quickly stand up. And that's why you see I started this fight with a Purify Wushu Strike. I want to make sure I had Cleanse Charges active as much as possible, pretty much. And so here I'm just going for 5 hit so I can get rid of his Intimidating Presence debuff, and I'm switching back to my Wushu combos. And from here, I'm pretty sure I can just use an L2 and get him down that quickly. And so this is what I mean about Shang-Chi being a nuke. I know he's not in the conventional sense like Nick Fury or like Corvus, but all it took was me naturally ramping myself up to an L2 and the fight ended. Shang-Chi has high hit damage and incredible special damage, and I really do think he deserves to be in the conversation for being a nuke. Now, this next fight against Spider-Gwen also isn't anything too serious. Some of you, specifically the Rankings team I talked to the other day, might know that I did make a bit of a misplay here that could have potentially cost me, but even if it did backfire, I don't think I would have died. But nonetheless, something to note, something that I overlooked and should definitely keep in mind for the future. You see I activated Slow immediately because I want to make sure she isn't evading at all. For obvious reasons, I don't want to get comboed. Here, just baiting the L1, it's pretty easy to dex. I'm also comfortable going in with a medium right after the L1 animation because she dashes back far enough that as long as you're being careful, she shouldn't have enough time to catch you out or, well, getting evaded on your first medium. Here, that's what happened. I activated my unblockable before going into my L2. Now that is a habit of mine that I like to use just in case for some reason the first hit of my L2 doesn't land, and it didn't occur to me that I probably shouldn't have done that on this fight, or it didn't occur to me that I probably shouldn't do it on this fight. Now, it went well all the same, and frankly I think even if I did get caught, I probably would have been alright, but nonetheless it's something to remember for future fights. So, next time I take Spider-Gwen, I will not use an unblockable Wushu before I activate the L2. Now this next fight was the other fight I was really excited to show. After that Iron Man Infinity War fight in the previous war, my officers decided they really wanted to see what I could do with Shang Chi. And so they sent me against this footloose, force of will, kinetic transference Darkhawk. Now, I was pretty scared for this fight, and I dueled a lot for it. And you'll see me use a fairly unorthodox strategy because what I found in my duels was that I would nearly always get backed into the corner, following the strategy I was planning on using. But I adjusted to that. I thought in my head, I was like, I don't think there really is a superior strategy for keeping this fight under control. And so I figured out how to make that strategy where I'd get back into the corner work. And how I'd make that work was by activating an invulnerability boost, both just in case he gets to his L3 somehow through me irresponsibly blocking too many hits, but mainly because when I get backed into the corner, I need to stall for time basically to let either his shield mode run out or to let his footloose buffs run out. But of course that means that he's going to try to heavy. Now, I don't know if maybe some of you guys can fully dex Darkhawk's heavy on the wall, but I cannot. The best I can do is dex all of the hits except the last one. And so I'm thinking about it. I'm like, okay, if I activate an invulnerability boost, that means worst case scenario, I can tank 3 heavies before everything starts getting a little bit sketchy. So that's my thought process, activating the invulnerability. You will see that come into play, but thankfully I was able to keep the fight under control pretty well, get some pretty nice looking wall dexes, and ultimately, well, I guess you'll see. Now, starting off this fight, I'm going to try to activate my slow immediately, if I remember right. Yeah, mainly because I want to make sure that whenever Darkhawk is activating his special 1 or 2, that I don't have to worry at all about him triggering those buffs, being his being his evade or his unstoppable. Sorry, technical difficulties there. Okay, hey guys, slightly older Falconos by a few minutes here. Now, that Darkhawk fight went great, but I don't know why the recording for it is scuffed. It's screwed. I don't know what's going on, but for some reason you'll see it gets really laggy and it cuts quite a bit. I am really actually disappointed about that and sorry that I can't share it with you guys because this was possibly my favorite fight I've done so far and I was really excited to share it. I will try my best to describe what's happening, but I apologize if you don't get the full experience. Anyways, on with the show. So going into this fight, I will immediately go for a medium to apply slow, because my goal is that whenever he throws his special 1 or 2, I will have a slow active on him, so I don't have to worry about his unstoppable or evade. And that's what's happening right now. Maybe you can hear the sound effects in the background. Just launched an L1, I got the first and last hit dexed, so I only took 2 blocked hits. And that was my strategy for minimizing his kinetic transference power gain. Now, I think next I'm pushing him up to the L2 at the moment. Again, I'm really sorry. I think you guys can see how much this is cutting out, how much this is lagging, and I don't know why this happened. It was very smooth in the fight, but again, I'm just going to keep trying to compensate with what little I have. I did also apply a WAGs pre-fight, which you may or may not see, but it did come into play later in this fight. You see I got backed in the corner here, got a really nice wall dex on his L1, and this is where the WAGs pre-fight came into play. Because the WAGs pre-fight applies a 2-second stun, which gives me enough time to apply slow, wushu, and, well, negate his unstoppable and evade. I ended that fight with an L2, and I lost 2% health. Really unfortunate that I couldn't salvage the full gameplay of it. I don't know what happened. I'm pretty sure the gameplay was fine when I was watching it from my phone, but I don't know. Maybe something happened in the transfer. I sincerely apologize for that. Now this next fight is against Null, actually, on that same path, and oh no, unfortunately it is looking like these fights also got corrupted. Okay, I'm not willing to do that much cutting, so we're going with the show. This is suddenly turning into a meme, but you know what? I'm gonna go with it. I'm gonna go with it. Now, this null fight, I am going to try minimizing the amount of debuffs I get on myself, because if I get too many, null will go unblockable, and we don't want that. Here I'm pushing him up to his L2 because his L1 is bad. It starts that reverse controls timer. You can't see it right now, but I did actually take a few hits from his L1, sorry, his L2, because I have no clue how to dex it. And I probably should have practiced, but I was okay because I still had my indestructible boost. I vaguely knew how to dex it, and I still had my indestructible boost, which is why I felt confident going into this fight. It's like, okay, he doesn't have the biggest health pool, I'll be able to end it very quickly anyways, even if something does go wrong. Now this next fight, I really underestimated, and I really hope that the gameplay for this one is intact, because I think this was a really good learning experience, both for me and potentially to caution any of you viewers about underestimating any fights at all. So I don't think I usually underestimate Havoc, but after that Shang Chi fight against Darkhawk, I was feeling really good. I felt like I was on top of the world, like I could do anything. And so going into this, like, what could go wrong? War Machine has his armor up. I even had some purifies. I failed to somehow remember that those purifies would do nothing because they would very quickly be negated by Havoc's plasma charge buildup, and that energy resistance would basically be the only thing saving me. Now, you'll see I lose the armor up pretty much immediately. Now, one of the reasons that this fight didn't go great was because both me and my planners forgot that War Machine doesn't actually regain his armor up buff. I don't know why we had that misconception with Silver Centurion. Wait, no, he does, sorry. Continuing with my point, we forgot that he doesn't regain his armor up buff, which I do not blame them for at all. I forgot that too. But I am very quickly starting to realize, hold on a minute, I'm taking about 19% of my health, 20% of my health in damage every time I trigger the plasma detonation. So now I'm down to 62%. He is barely lower than me. And if I don't kick up the pace soon, I am pretty sure I'm gonna die. And so I very quickly try to pivot how I'm playing this fight. Try to focus the L2s, make sure, or try to maximize my time before plasma detonations. And I'm working my way up to my own L2, because while the L1 may be better from a utility perspective, the L2 does a lot more damage. The armor break you get from the L2 does a lot more damage. And you see I'm having to play this entire fight with Havoc unblockable, because I also underestimated that. Now, I like to think I kind of counterweighted that, kind of balanced that out by playing really well. You'll see my heavy baits are on fleek, let's just go with, and my intercepts are looking very clean, if I do say so myself. And so this fight will have a happy ending. I also kind of forgot in the fight that I didn't have to worry too much, since War Machine does of course have his regen, but I didn't want to rely on that. I finished out on 17% health, and I could have finished at a lot lower if I didn't realize quickly that, oh shit, he's doing a lot of damage, I need to pick up the pace. So while on one hand I am proud of myself for bringing that fight back from what could have been a disaster, on the other hand I am disappointed in myself and am very much taking that lesson with me, never to underestimate a fight. Even if it seems really simple, even if you just had a great victory, don't underestimate what seems like a very easy win. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed that compilation. That was the last fight so far. I might make another of these if I have any other very interesting war fights I take in the next few wars. I think if I do another, it'll continue to be in batches of 3. That feels like a manageable amount to me. Yeah. Thanks so much for watching. Oh, and by the way, happy ending. We won all 3 of those wars, GOM-P. And as a result, we actually are currently 20th in Masters, which is so awesome. Our goal for this season is to finish in Masters. From what I can tell, GOM-P has been very close to hitting Masters for quite a few seasons now, and so we're really trying to put our best foot forward. We're shaking off the rust as quickly as possible, and we're coming for those top 20 spots. Well, we're already in 20th, but we're coming for those higher top 20 spots. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a good day, a good week, a good month, a good year. I hate Friends. That was not a Friends reference, or if it was accidental. I hope you get some great crystal pools. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.